Hello, everybody, and welcome. I'm Dmitry Kulko.
I'm Pinky Patel. Welcome, everyone.
So go to the agenda, and we have a lot of information to share with you today. How this idea about this session started? Well, we work with different organizations a lot, with our customers. And customer was asking, hey, can you help us with some extra identity verification mechanism? Right, they have centrally managed identity provider that manage their security principles. And they said, well, some scenarios we would like to have some extra channel to identify our employee. That is the beginning.
We'll discuss the solutions where using the decentralized identity. Decentralized identity provides the standard framework to express the credentials on the web. It is a unique identifier which can be used to access the resource, cryptographically signed, and verifies the credentials. Verifiable credentials, it provides the mechanisms to present the credentials, cryptographically secure, privacy protecting, and machine verifiable.
Right. In our case, we said, OK, let's go with proof of concept to use verified employee, verifiable credentials for you. And see if we can match your asking. And we'll share later what was asked and how we were deploying it. Yeah, so verified employee is something we're going to share with you today.
So throughout the sessions, you will learn about a lot more in details, all the different roles and the players in these verifiable credential ecosystems. We will be showing recorded demonstrations. It is a live demonstrations that we have recorded. We're showing that how the customers implemented this in their environments where using the decentralized identity to issue and verify the verifiable credentials. So let's dive into our session.
Right. So let's go to the customer asking. Right. Very two simple asking on the screen, and everybody probably well aware about this type of challenges. The employee is calling help desk. Said, hey, I need to help with my device, with this application, with access to this data. And this question could be quite security sensitive, right? And desktop support is going to tell, I'll help you. Can we get something extra to identify you? And there are different ways to do it. We will talk about it. And when we speak with our customers, with different organizations, often through the scoping conversation, the organization would tell, well, we don't have enough people power to manage this employee's request. Let's focus on self-services. Let's focus on self-recovery. And this was the next question, like, OK, if you give us this channel, can we somehow to engage this extra identification mechanism to user account recovery?
So from both of those scenarios, as we can see, the customer is looking for identity verifications. Based on the NIST, the definitions of identity verification is to confirm the person who claimed to be by checking the identity documentations or biometrics, what they possess. This process basically, it links between the physical persons and their valid identity. Once that link has been confirmed, we can trust that this is the persons who they claim to be. So let's look at our proposed solutions for our customers.
Right. Well, we working with different orgs, we often discuss, hey, how you identify your employees if they're losing access? What's the way? And different answers. One customer said, well, we're sending temp password to their manager. There are video calls involved quite often, good tone. Very often, unfortunately, human resources in advance shares with identity verification system or even directly with desktop support some personally identifiable information. And this employee is going to be questioned about this information. If answers are matching, it unlocks help desk, right? So yeah, that's the way. We said, well, there is another one way. We can propose to use verified employee credentials using decentralized identity system. And we're going to concentrate on this solution.
So before we talk further, let's look at some of the benefits and limitations for using the verifiable credentials. It is fraud-proof because it's cryptographically issued and verifies the authoritative source. In a way, the distributed identity to organize, it allows the organizations to verify instantly. The third is it gives the individual full control of their data while respecting the privacy. So now the users can request and present these credentials where they wanted to. Lastly, overall, it increases the securities. HR isn't to, like my friend Dimitri said, right? HR is sharing the data, the PII data, to the desktop systems. So these were some of the benefits that our proposed solutions provides. The limitations is like the other credentials. Verifiable credentials is also prone to be hacking, stolen. If the users lost their device or it's been stolen, it is prone to be the identity theft there. Or their wallet apps has been compromised. That can lead it into identity theft. The other one is the usability concern, where the adaptations and the visibility of these technologies, the distributing the wallet app, that could be the concerns. So let's look at our verifiable credentials life. Verifiable credentials is a open standard framework for digital credentials. What that means is anybody can issue for anything. Anybody can present, and everybody can verify it. In the common step, this is what it will look like. So the issuer service issues and generates the verifiable credentials for this holder. So in our case, this individual in these pictures is the holder. Holder is the one gets the credentials that is generated by the issuer service, which is securely transmitted to the holder. And now holder securely stores their credentials in their wallet apps. Holder is the one presents their credentials to the verifier service. And the presentations is also securely through the cryptographically methods there. So now as we can see that holder is the one is in the centerpiece of this three entity. Holder is in the control of requesting the verifiable credentials as well as presenting when they wanted to present their credentials to the verifier service.
Let's add some life to this picture. This happy person in the middle, let's imagine this person just freshly hired by the imaginary company, Northwind Traders. So this person was hired, and this person was going through successful onboarding, having the centrally managed account in the centrally managed identity system. And then, well, of course, probably multi-factor authentication was onboarded, this factor, and hopefully passwordless. And then after that, this person was instructed to issue verifiable credentials. It's done, so person in their smartphone has verified employee verifiable credentials. Well, let's try to imagine what could be theoretically next, how we can use it. If we somehow could organize the communication with desktop, when person is calling and desktop says, hey, can you verify yourself, please? And person will do it through verifiable credentials using verified employee type of VC. Or we can go further and say, what if we can connect programmatically this verification with the next step to recover user access to the account or user security profile? Well, I can invent another one scenario. Let's imagine this person was excited about this new employment and wanted to, in the business communication social network, wanted to prove employment. If this social network for business communication would allow, this person would show this verifiable credential, done. So it's 100% we have employment proof on this system. No fraud. Well, that's some ideas, right? So person has this, and the wide range of opportunities is opening. Let's go further, deeper.
So let's look at all the different roles and relationships in the verifiable credential ecosystems. As we can see in this slide, there are many roles here and those relationship between those ones. So let's give some definitions to each one. So the one I'm going to talk about is the holder role. The holder is the centerpiece of these three identity: issuers, holders, and verifier. Holder is the one holds, possesses the verifiable credentials that is generated by the issuer service. Holder includes, it can be employee, it can be students, it could be customer, it could be anybody. Holder can hold the multiple or a single verifiable credential. They can hold the credentials for something different, that things that they wanted to hold for. So they can have a multiple verifiable credentials that they could be holding for that. The credentials, verifiable credentials that they will be holding for some sort of subjects. They could be holding for someone or something. It could be human or it could be pet, right? Like example, the parents is holding the verifiable credentials for their child. In many cases, the holders are the subjects. But in some cases, this example that I gave you, the parents is holding the verifiable credentials such as like a birth certificates for their child. In that case, the child is the subjects and the parents is the holder. The other example I'm going to give you is, let's say, pet owner holding the credentials for their cat. In that case, the cat is the subjects and the owner is the holder there.
Amazing. So let's add more players on this picture. From the left side is the issuer. Well, what issuer serves, right? Issuer issues verifiable credentials from what? First, issuer is going to establish claims for a subject first, right? And second is going to issue this, create this verifiable credential. Third is going to move to transfer this verifiable credential to a holder. That's important point. Issuer does not hold these verifiable credentials, right? That's the whole picture about these decentralized identities. Holder is holding, and holder is in control to start verification process. If holder wants, holder needs to engage the verifier, and there's going to be a verifiable credential presentation process. Through this process, is going to be create data derived from verifiable credential or verifiable credentials. And this data would be cryptographically controlled to be presented to the exact verifier. Verifier is going to verify. So, another one key player, verifiable data registry, which is a mediator. It mediates creation and verification of verifiers. It mediates creation and verification for keys for issuer, credential revocation list, verifiable credential schemas, mediator, right? And it helps us also to resolve information, to get a pointer on the source to prove this cryptographical verification. So that's the players. One thing to highlight. Here's a link on the World Wide Web Consortium Verifiable Credentials Data Model. So what is important in the solution we deployed for the customer, we did not invent anything beyond of open standards. We were following these open standards, and the interoperability of the key players is fantastic on this field.
So let's pivot back to our customer scenario. Those were two customer scenario where customer wanted to engage their employee for desktop service and as well as for the counter recovery, and they want their employee to provide the employee verifications, right? Workplace credentials is a use case for the verifiable credentials for the workplace. So user can have these workplace credentials from their organizations where they can use these credentials for their basically verifying that, hey, this is the employee that I am from your organizations. So the workplace is the credentials that can be used for the organizations, for their employee.
Right. I can't get enough of highlighting this interoperability. So this decentralized identity foundational document and this presentation profile defined in this document. You can click on this link in our presentation. You can download this. And if you scroll up this document, you will see the work group. Work group compiled of people who represent key players on the field of modern identity. Like you would see these enterprise brands names, and when I read through, I just thinking like, okay, it's something from the Beatles lyrics. What song do you think playing? It's Imagine, right? It's Imagine, like these key players, they were literally sitting in a round table creating these open standards. So this standard, this snippet defines the list of claims for verified employee, and the document recommends to use it.
So this is the example of the verifiable credential for the directory-based claim. For organization to use the directory-based claim for within their verifiable credentials, they need to make sure their IDP provider supports and be compatible with the OpenID Connect. They need to make sure their IDP allows their users to log in, sign in using the Wallet app, where Wallet app can download that contract, the user inputs, and authenticate users using the OpenID authorizations code flow. So organization needs to make sure their IDP provider basically supports OpenID Connects. Once the user successfully signs in, the successful connections will provide, the IDP will provide the ID token. And that resulting ID tokens will have this claim value. These are the all 7 claims that they will have in their token. Now, those value will be presented to the wallet apps. And now the wallet app will pass this value to the issuer service. And now the issuer service will generate the verifiable credentials with those claims. So now the verifiable credentials that generated by the issuer service, you will see some of this value, like example, like a displays names or usernames or job titles.
Right. We defined schema on the previous slide, right? And now we need to have something to put data into these claims. And this is employee. We know all these values for this employee. Why not to accomplish this authentication with our wallet application against our on-premises, whatever, our centrally managed identity provider, doesn't matter, which is OpenID Connect compatible, and fill out these attributes. We're ready to go deeper to the process of issuing.
Mm-hmm. So let's look at now. Now you know all those different players in these ecosystems, right? So now let's look at what this flow will look like when employee, again, you remember the employee, the holder is in the control if they wanted to request the verifiable credentials and they wanted to present the verifiable credentials. So what that flow will look like, the employee who wants to request for the verifiable credentials. So in this, where we see the holder here, right? The flow will start when holder request from the issuer web front. In this, organizations have the browser base. They can also have a native based applications that their user can access this web front. Now the web front will drive the users and executes the issuer-specific logics, and this is the issuer-specific logics. Behind the curtain, the web front will contact the issuer service and request to generate the verifiable credential issuance request. And this request will be generated by our issuer service, and then it will be rendered by our web front as a QR code. It's depend on the holder's device that they are using. It will be QR code or it will be the device specific tip link. And these informations will be presented as a QR code. Now the holder, in our case, will have wallet applications. And these wallet applications need to be basically supported and compatible with the verifiable credentials. Will scan that QR code that is in step 4. Once the user scans their QR code, the unique resource identifications, these informations will be presented to the device.
Well, thank you. We can demo these few steps, because in our lab we're mimicking customer proof of concept. We were using the same brands as customer was using. So, generally speaking, doesn't matter. But on this screen, decentralized identity system represented by Microsoft Entra Verified ID. The wallet app is Microsoft Authenticator, and Azure Active Directory is the OpenID compatible identity provider.
So as we see, this is the web front for their organizations. In our case, we are, like my friend says, right? we are using the Microsoft Entra for our issuer service and as well as our verifier service. User will get prompted to scan that QR code from their wallet apps. And once the user scans that QR code, a URI will be presented to the device. And further, step 5 there.
Okay, so these first 4 important steps happened. So we generated the issuer URI and delivered it to the wallet. Good. On step number 5, this request was downloaded from the issuer. What is inside? What this request includes? Well, decentralized identifier for the issuer. This deed is going to be used to be resolved through the trust system, and it will point the wallet on the deed document that includes the key of the deed service issuer. So we can check integrity, we can verify cryptographically the integrity of this request and legitimacy of this deed service issuer. Good, what else? We have URL to download the schema of the future verifiable credentials. So we define schema, right? We have this list of claims and data types. So we download this schema on the wallet. The sort, we're going to download how this future verifiable credential is going to look like in the wallet, like colors, logo, titles. So step number 5, downloaded. Step number 6, our wallet is doing this cryptographic verification. All good. This is verified employee scenario. We need to fill out these claims, signing in against our identity provider, right? This is signing in. In our demo, so this spinning, right, was checking the keys, going to resolving deed, and now we said verified, good. We can move forward, and the wallet, because of the data type, is going to instruct user to accomplish sign-in. Wallet in advance configured to sign in against this identity provider. In this case, it's Azure Active Directory, and our smart and happy holder, future holder, not yet, configured passwordless authentication, right? So in exchange of this successful authentication, wallet is going to get access to the list of claims from the token, claims with values. So green light, user successfully authenticated, data combined, all ready, everything is ready to send this information on the issuer side. And that requires consent from the user, from the future holder. Nothing can be done without holder, right? That's the trick about decentralized identity. Holder is in control. So holder should have this motion. Yes, I'd like to add this verifiable credential in my wallet. So these artifacts were sent to the issuer. Issuer sign it out, return back to the wallet. Our smart user is checking what is inside of these verifiable credentials. Well, just a regular list of claims with data that was uploaded from the identity provider, in our case, Azure AD. So, good, we successfully issued credentials for this employee. That's why employee is happy. So that concludes the first demo.
So let's look at now. Now the employee has that verifiable credentials in their wallets, right? So that was a first scenario where customers wanted to have employee verifications for their desktop system engagements, right? What the communication will look like. So user will call help desk, stating their names, email address, and description of their problems. Help desk will go to their systems and put the usernames and check if this user is being verified. In our case, where we see this user is not being verified, so help desk cannot engage further. Help desk is going to ask users, basically, you need to go through the verification process. It's going to ask users to go to that front-end verifier service for their organizations, where it will be asking user to scan this QR code. User will scan this QR code where they have this verifiable credentials from that device, because this is the credentials they will be using for their employee verifications, right? So user will scan that QR code. User will be prompted. Again, the holder is in the control of who they wanted to present and what they wanted to present, right? So it will be prompted to share these credentials to the verifier instance. Once user shares their credentials and to their verifier service, the verifier service will check their credentials and sends the status to the help desk systems. In our case now, where we can see that user is being verified now the help desk individual can engage further with that employee. So now let's look at what is that workflow will look like it. When the help desk is going to walk through, where they see is that user is not being verified, what is that user is going to do in order to do the verification process. Again, the holder will start the flow by accessing their verifier service, the front-end services. Front-end services going to contact the verifier service to request for generation, the request for the presentations request. This time is a different request. Earlier we discussed, right, it was an insurance request. This time the presentations request. So the presentations request will be created by the verifier service. And it will get rendered by our web front as a QR code. And again, the holder will scan that QR code from their wallet where they have stored that verifiable credential for their organizations, that employee. Once it's scanned, let's look at what it looks like. This is the URL for their web front for issuer service. User is going to click on verify, scan, like how I discussed earlier. Once the user scan this, is going to present the URI to the device. In the back end, this is where it's got rendered from the verifier service, the presentations request for the verifier credentials.
Very well. Again, we communicated the holder intention to accomplish this verifiable credential presentation process, right? URI generated, we delivered it to the user through wallet, and step number 5 includes type of verifiable credentials we are looking for, right? So this wallet is going to take a look if this type even presented in the wallet. Decentralized identifier for the verifier. So the cryptographical part could be checked by the wallet, this resolving the document, etc. So after that, wallet is going to guide our holder through the process when holder is going to give this consent to start presentation, right? So in this demo example, we verified the legitimacy of the verifier all good. And we have this smart employee who, before sharing anything, checking what they are going to share, right? It's in control of this holder. Holder is checking the list of claims and values and said, yeah, I'm going to share it with this verifier. That's what I wanted. And well, should be some indication, right? Like in our lab, we said, okay, let's indicate everything is as a result of this verification, right? So this imaginary desktop support would say, indeed, you are Josh, and the presentation successfully verified. And Josh, welcome, and maybe Josh knows, maybe Josh doesn't know user principal name. So desktop support has green light to start the process to help to Josh with their request. That concludes the second demo when we could successfully run verifiable credential verification. Account recovery.
So many organizations has a different IDP provider, right? So the account recovery process will be different. But in most sequence, this is how it will be. Employee going to go to specific site where they will be trying to verify by themselves. They are going to scan the QR code. Once they scan, next slide. Once they scan, they are going to basically prompted to share their credentials to verify our instance. Now, the web front can programmatically initiate the next step. Again, depend on the IDP provider. In our case, oops, next slide. Yeah. It's not going
So
next slide.
just one notice, right? So we don't know what should happen on this screen like universally. Like we need to work with this identity provider, asking, hey, what is the next step for the your flow to recover access to the user account? Do you have programmatical access to run this recovery?
So in our third demonstrations, where we will be using the TAP, the temporary access pass, to recover the account. Temporary access pass, it is a time-limited passcode. Can be configured like multiple time use or single use, depending how the organizations wants to use for their organization. It allows, it is, by the way, Microsoft Azure AD features, which allows users to onboard the MFA, basically strong authentications method for their accounts. TAP does satisfy the MFA, so it allows the users to basically add any other authentications method for their accounts. So in these demonstrations, we will be requesting the temporary access pass for the account recovery by using the verifiable credentials. So
right.
let's look at that
Thank
demo
you.
here.
Doesn't matter like what identity provider is, right? So in our case, it's Azure AD. We use temporary access passcode. If you work with different vendor, like should be different method. You can imagine demo is quite simple. Our employee, our smart employee, lost access to the centrally managed enterprise account. Okay, no way to sign in, but our smart employee remembers that they have these verified employee credentials issued for that case. And the smart employee was following the instruction how to engage the self-service remediation, how to get access back to user security profile. Well, smart employee was checking if this verifiable credential is alive. Well, they don't use it every day, right? So like, okay, it's in my wallet. What is a list of claims? this employee can control the audit logs, right? So what happened with this verifiable credential in the past. And now this holder initiate process. Nothing fancy here, right? So you saw this just a few minutes ago, this holder initiate verifiable credential presentation step, checking what they're going to share. Smart guy. And now, after successful verification, programmatically this interface engaged the mechanism that said, hey, you have 15 minutes and one time try to recover access. Well, this is what our customer implemented that we should to show. That is a short demo when we could recover access to the account using the self-service with the help of verified employee, verifiable credentials. We are ready to go to talk through the last slide, key things learned. Well, I would probably say, hopefully you would agree that decentralized identities really enabled secure and efficient identity verification process. And through this proof of concept with our customer, we could say, yeah, indeed, proposed solution works. So we could engage this vault of verifiable credentials to help with the asking from our customer.
As I already discussed earlier about the benefits, the solutions provides the benefits of, like, improves the overall security. It respects the privacies, and it streamlines the workflow of issuing and verifying the verifiable credentials. The solutions can be used in the real world scenario, like how we did it for our employee verifications and account recovery. And it is an open standard framework, so it can be used in that area. This technology is growing, so some of the future development can include like some more use case for verifiable credentials, and there are some coming up. And adaptations, more adaptations globally, so integrating with the other IDP or other identity provider right now is globally recognized. So I think this is like how we say, this is the last slide.
That concludes our presentation.
So thank you.
Welcome to discuss, ask questions.
And if you have any questions, we are here.
So I had a question on the issuance service. So issuance service is probably like a company's HR system, right? And that's where the data is coming from. How is that data getting up to Azure? And is it, now do you have the PII data that's in Azure to create the actual verified claim? Or are you actually wanting to getting it from the HR system already encrypted and pass it along? And follow-on question to that is also then how do you deal with changes of data?
Thank you. Well, how data, like, yeah. Let's do a step back and say, hey, how these claims in verifiable credentials are going to be populated. And we're blessed because it's well defined in the open standards. It's done and for different cases, examples, etc. And the vault of verifiable credentials is wide and colorful. So today we're covering verified employee. And because it is verified employee, it is recommended by open standards to take data from the identity provider, which doesn't matter what identity provider, right? Compatible identity provider. Your wallet should have opportunity to authenticate against this identity provider and get this claim. how data went to identity provider, how you creating user accounts in your centrally managed identity provider. Depends, right? So I worked with maybe 1,000 different customers, and some you can imagine like populated manually. So human resources, give them paper, send them email, and someone is going to populate. And of course, there are some very sophisticated system importing and exporting data between identity provider and HR. But this is outside of today's discussion, right? So somehow org decided to populate claims in the identity provider. Verifiable credential for verified employee recommended to take these values from this authoritative source. Did I answer? No. Okay.
So basically,
Go
is
again.
that Azure's holding PII data, and that's where the actual data is living and residing, and all the controls need to be there to manage that data. Correct?
Where you're coming back to Azure, right? I'm just switching you
Or
back to
a
the any
centralized
open
IDP
identity
system, and
provider.
not the company itself.
And for the verified employee, recommended to use this solution. Right, right. So this centrally managed identity provider has the source for data to populate claims in verified employee. Agree? Is it was question? Is it correct? Yes, it's correct.
Yeah, if you are using the IDP as Azure AD, yes, your data will be populated there, right?
Well, any IDP would be used,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
The scope of data gets a lot wider.
Yes.
So you now have to manage and ensure it's kept up, to the right level.
Okay, well, just one last notice. The list of claims defined and fixed in the open standards and recommended to limit with like 7. You can go wider, but then you need to redefine this schema for this verifiable credential and put it into this system that can guide you. So it's you can't go with 200 just because you want it. It's defined. Yeah, well, as any identity provider has PII data. Right, agree.
Not to this level.
What's that?
Well, not to this level. This is sort of a deeper level that needs to be managed.
Let's discuss
Let's
in
discuss
home.
outside. Yeah. You have a question?
At the beginning of your presentation, you said one of the potential issues is the adoption. And I see that also in the demo that you gave, because you start with the bootstrapping of the identity, proving that I am the person I claim to am, by saying like there's maybe an HR department that claims that I am that person, which means that your use case only will work in that ecosystem. Because if you go to organization B, they won't trust the identity proofing process of that HR department, which in the end means that the end user will have a lot of wallets and a lot of points where you will have to prove his identity over and over again. So the only way where this will work is where you get this at scale. For me, that means you need adoption by the government, banking, healthcare. But there, if you go to an issuer, I want to have a driver's license, COVID safe pass, banking credentials, they're regulated. So you need a government-issued digital identity. How do you intend to do that? Because that's the only way how it's going to work.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. I know the topic about verifiable credentials is amazing. That's why from the beginning I said, right now we're talking just about verified employee. To be positive about the adoption, there is the United States standards for e-driver's license. And right now there is a project which is like really running between the California government and some organization to start to use this in a real life. So adoption is coming,
Yeah.
but in our case, this organization covered just verified employee. You're correct. And since they started this project, the few more implementation scenarios came. For example, with this example with social network for business communication, right? It's uncovered opportunity, well, LinkedIn, uncovered opportunity to prove your employment with verifiable credentials. And we're going to stop in a few seconds.
Yeah, LinkedIn cannot prove that I'm the person that I claim to be because I can create a LinkedIn profile with Mickey Mouse.
I can.
So still, I don't understand how you're gonna get this at scale, because you will need a government-issued identity to bootstrap your whole ecosystem. Otherwise, you don't get access to regulated industries like banking, like government, like insurances, and so on, and healthcare. So if you want one single solution that solves, let's say, the myriad of apps that a user has, you need to get this at scale, and then you need to link with regulated identities, like in Europe, EIDAS, and here you have indeed the driver's license. So this on its own, I think, with the bootstrapping of the identity won't work.
This is the starting point, right? Like how we say that the adaptations and increasing the more identity providers to get it into this space. So like how he says, right?
Well, thank you. This concern is real, and we are absolutely with you. And the beginning point we did show for this customer. And if you would like to discuss with more details, we are happy to continue in a whole.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for attending this.
Thank you, everyone.